Hey, I'm Cameron McKenzie. I'm the editor-in-chief at theserverside.com. You can follow me on Twitter at CameronMCNZ. And I wanted to talk to you about git config, specifically where to find those git config files on Ubuntu. I'm going to show them to you, but I'm also going to show you a little trick. You should be able to find it in the comments or in the article at the server side that allows you to actually run a command that will actually tell you where the config files are, just in case you can't find them. So I have right here a Git repository, and I can prove to you that it's a Git repository because it's got a .git folder in it. And if I go into that .git folder, you'll see that there is a file in there called config, and that is the configuration of a local Git environment. That's your local config for your local repository. I've got it right here, so I can open it in a text editor. You can see a couple of interesting things in there, and then that's about it. So that's where your local config is. Now, after the local config, you might be interested in the next one up in the scope, and that's the global config. And the global config is found in the root folder. And so I've got the root folder right here. There's the root, and you can see it right there. Okay, maybe not, maybe you can't see it. Now the reason why you can't see it is because if you've never actually put anything into the global scope, Git never creates that file for you. So there should be a file called dit.config in there, but there isn't. But you can push the boundaries of Git by forcing one in there. All you have to do is add a variable to that file. So I'll do sudo git config, and I'll put something into the global scope. And into the global scope, I'll set the name, user.name, and I'll make the name global because we're trying to do global scope. So I'll put the password in, and then you can see immediately the file comes up here in this root directory. Okay, well maybe it doesn't. Sometimes we actually have to go into the terminal to see where all of this information is. So I'm going to sudo -i, change into the super user, move down to the root directory, and then move into the root directory. And there you go, you can see the file there. Okay, maybe you can't, ls-a, now we can see the file there. So that was just created. It wasn't there before. And if I do a little edit.git config, you can see that it's set the name to global. So that's where the global config is. And then finally, we want to see the system config. Now the system config is put inside of etc. Now again, can I see it in here? I'll see if I can Control-H to hide and then Control-H to show them again. I'm not sure if that's hidden or whether it's not hidden. But can I find the file, which should be named git config in here? It does not look like git config is in there. And I can even prove it. So there's the etc folder right there. I'll cd into etc, ls-a. And you know what? I don't see a git config or a .git config or even a config in here. And it's really git config that I want to see. And yeah, I don't see it. And so again, it's just playing a little bit of a trick on us. What it actually wants us to do is add something to that file. And so yeah, so I don't see git config over here either. And it should just be called git config. So it should just be right there. I'll do the Control-H to show hidden files just in case it's hidden there and it is not. Okay, so here's what you do. You just go sudo git config -- system, and then I'll do user.name at the system level, and I'll call it Sister Sally. And actually we saw some movement over here as soon as I did that. And the movement was this git config file. So I can open with the text editor, and you can see Sister Sally has been changed. And so those are the three basic git config scopes. Now, if you have your own work tree, you could set up multiple work trees in your environment. So you can have a work tree for develop branch, feature branch, master branch. Then you can actually have a separate work tree configuration file. So I think it's called config.worktree. Yeah, it's called config.worktree, and that's in the .git folder as well. Windows has a portable scope, but I'm not really sure where that fits into the equation. But that does show you where all the git config files are. Now there is one cool command that I did want to show you. And I'll see if I can find it in my history here. Always dangerous showing people what you're config history is. But you can see this call here, sudo git-c core.editor equals ls -al config --global -edit. Now if you run this command, I'll put this command at the bottom of the YouTube video, you'll notice that it says the location of the file right there. So .git config in the root. Here if I ask for the system, it says etc git config, and if I ask for local, and you have to do this from within a Git repository, it'll tell you where the location of that file is as well. So that's a real nice way of figuring out where those files are, just in case they're not showing up and you think something really weird is going on. So there you go. That's how you find all of the different Git config files in Ubuntu Linux. And there you go. That's how you find the Git config files in Ubuntu. Now, if you're interested in more on Git, Ubuntu, anything that has to do with server-side development, head over to the serverside.com. I'm the editor-in-chief over there. If you're interested in my personal antics, you can follow me on Twitter at CameronMCNZ, and you can always subscribe on YouTube.